today's show is related to awakenings and what that means and what that's about. Thousands and millions of people are awakening all over the globe, but we might not know what to call it. We might not know it's happening until we look back on a certain part of our life and realize that's what it was. It's often very personal. It's not something that you are sharing with everybody. You can potentially be keeping it to yourself, and you're looking online for more information. You're looking on different websites and reading books and perhaps doing it all in your own space and in your own way. And this is perfect. I feel this is actually required, that it is a personal experience, because your awakening process is different than mine, is different than your best friends, is different than the people that I know. We each have our own specific awakening journey. Some people awaken quickly, and some people awaken over a few years. Now let me back up and share with you how we would define a spiritual awakening. There are many definitions of awakening. There are different ways to do this, as I've just said. But the essential nature of a spiritual awakening is that you become aware of how truly powerful you are, of how your energy is beyond the here and now or the physical form, that it is related to your soul's energy. It's related to all these parts of yourself you can't see. And you are awakening to the power of that, to what is temporary and what is forever, to what is spiritual and what is physical, to understanding more and more about the lessons you're here to learn, the people in your life, soul contracts, themes, all of this. It comes up and it comes to your awareness. It could be very jolting. It could be fearful. It could be exciting. You might reject it. You might invite it. It can be all of this and more. It challenges a lot of mass media information. It pushes the boundaries on what you thought you knew or what you had figured out. But at the same time, awakenings connect you to something so much bigger, and there's freedom, there's energy, there's excitement, there's release, there's an understanding that is more holistic and empowering than ever before. Now, this, of course, is related to how I've come to understand spiritual awakenings and how I've heard stories and witnessed events for other people. You might have parts of this in your life. It might be different. But the idea is that a spiritual awakening can shift significantly who you are, your life purpose, what you're here to do, all of these components. So when we talk about spiritual awakenings, they often occur in layers. And that's because it gives us information that we can digest. It depends on when your first spiritual awakening began. My first spiritual awakening was in 2002, and I didn't even know it. I had no idea. But I first went to a psychic who opened me up to more information about my life and the possibilities and what I could do and how to work with energy and all of these different elements. And I look back now, in 2002 into 2005 and beyond were very significant for my spiritual awakening, but I didn't know it at the time. So perhaps you can relate. If you've been on this journey for a while and you look back on your life and you look at these mileposts, you realize, wow, that was a turning point, or that brought in more information for me that I couldn't see at the time, but it was afterwards. It was afterwards that you saw the bigger picture. So these spiritual awakenings occur in layers, because not only is it about what you can digest and what works for you, it's also about the energy of the planet. Now, back in 2002, I don't know if you remember, but it was a very, very different energy. I want to even call it dense. For here in the United States, it was only months after the terror attacks in New York that I had my spiritual awakening. And that was a dense time on the planet with everything that was stirred up and everything that came about. And I feel strongly that for those of us who had our spiritual awakenings 2001, even into 2005, if you fall into that time period, you were activating greater light on the planet to balance out all the other energies that were circulating. That's why. That's why we timed it. That's why our soul said, okay, this is when my awareness is needed the most. Now, if your awakening has been recently, perhaps a few years ago, perhaps this year, whenever it was, keep in mind that that is divinely timed, and that is guided by your soul, and it's what you chose. And you chose it for many possible reasons. But whatever it is, it's been perfect for you. And it's important that we affirm that for ourselves, that we're not looking to see where we are in regards to other people. Now, on that note, there are millions who are not awakening and who will not. It is not their soul's plan to awaken on the same levels. It is not their choice. It is not their interest. This is divine. This is perfect. And this is also where we must be in acceptance and be in a detachment. Because when people, whatever choice people make is perfect for them. And again, the resources I mentioned and shared with you are going to provide more of an understanding around why some people choose not to awaken right now. They could have been an incredible spiritual leader in their last lifetime. Or, and they could have been doing a ton of energy work for 4 lifetimes in a row, and now they're like, I'm just going to hang back this time, and I'm going to enjoy my daily job, and I'm going to keep it simple. There's a million of perfect reasons why people choose not to awaken, and so it's incredibly important, and I say this to you, human to human, that we can't judge, we can't expect, we can't hold any type of attachment to that happening. Because when we know that everything is divine, we don't require anything, right? We don't require that someone be something they're not, or that they don't force their energy, or they don't have to become something else, right? We are just in acceptance. And I say that human to human because there's times when we really want something, right? We really wish, that one parent would understand, or the sibling would get it, or you'd be on the same page with your friends. It doesn't always happen that way, and that's why it's divine. So spiritual awakenings tend to happen in layers. It can happen instantly overnight. I feel that the past few years, the energy has supported quicker awakenings than ever before. So for those of us who have been doing this for years, you are a pioneer. We laid the groundwork. We set down the foundation so that others can awaken faster and quicker and come into contact with their greater, more powerful self. And I find this very exciting. It's an exciting time right now to connect with other people who are awake, who are interested in this work, and who want to be a part of it and who want to share it. Now, with spiritual awakenings, they occur in different ways. As I said at the beginning, your spiritual awakening will be specific to you in how you designed it and how you needed it to happen and what fits your energy and how you move through energy. What that means is we all have our own paces and our own ways of moving through life. I mentioned before on the show that I tend to be a speedy one, and I move through stuff very fast. However, that can also alter my expectations when I expect other people to move through it faster. But I have to own my own energy, and sometimes I have to slow down, and sometimes I don't have to slow down. But that's just my pace. My pace in life tends to be faster moving, which means that I also have to accept other people who are slower moving, right? So it all will come back to acceptance, owning your energy, and accepting other people's energy as well. In my book, The Art of Trapeze, I share with you the first spiritual awakening of 2002, and then later on in the book, I share with you exactly how it expanded. And it expanded at a time when I was ready for more understanding, when it was personal for me. I had moved to Paris. I moved my whole life to Paris. I fell in love with a man from Turkey. I was working at the U.S. Embassy. I moved my cats abroad. I sold all of my furniture here in the States. I got rid of everything. That was my new life. That was it. And then changes happened, as they do in life. And I went through that process of surrendering. Yesterday's show, I talked about surrendering and why we do that and why it's crucial. And after the surrendering is when I had one of my deepest awakenings. And that's really, honestly, what I'm passionate about in the book. But I have intentionally shared a story with you that is the very human version of the book. So you're reading it and you're like, well, this is just, it's a memoir, it's personal, hopefully it's funny, it's enjoyable, it's an adventure. But you'll see how there isn't a lot of spiritual, quote unquote, heaviness. And that's because I saved it to the point at the end of the book where you have the opportunity to all of a sudden see things differently. And I feel like that's how we live our lives, right? We're going through our lives. We're living them day by day. We're in the experiences. We're moving through relationships. We're getting new jobs. We're going through our lives, and then we're awakened with new information. And that's what I want the experience of the book to be about, is that it relates to a potential real-life scenario of awakening where it comes out of the blue. That's my intention. Of course, that that is something that's left to the reader, and it's an interesting experience to take something that's personal and that I value and to put it out into the world. But that's what I do. That's one of my sole purposes here, because ultimately I believe that my story overlaps some parts of your story and that there is a lot of healing involved, healing in understanding and connecting to a bigger perspective, and in knowing the whys, because that's a human thing, right? We want to know, why is this happening? Why did I experience that relationship ending? Why did this not work out? And this is my understanding of the whys. So I offer that to you, and again, it's free, but I'm not going to keep harping on that because I trust that if you're drawn to the book, you will grab it now while you can. So spiritual awakenings are going to continue for ourselves personally and globally. More people are looking for this information and they want it. And it's interesting because I think that some people want it too quickly or want too much at once. It's almost like gorging yourself on information and trying to take that fast path. But I have to share with you that there are no shortcuts. There are no shortcuts. You might know, quote unquote, this information and you get it, right? Like you understand why your soul chose this, or you see what this relationship was about, but you still have to put it into practice. And that's one of the reasons why we are here in physical form on this beautiful earth and alive. It's because you take the spiritual information and you ground it. And by doing that, you create change in your life. And this is why relationships change. This is why you don't want to live in the same place anymore. This is why the job is no longer satisfying, because you're taking the spiritual understanding of who you are as a soul, and you're activating it, and that activation changes you, changes what you want, changes your energy, changes how you see yourself in the world, how you see yourself in your daily life. And, change isn't easy for all of us, especially big changes all at once. There's a saying, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to quote it properly, but it's basically that, when you have one change happening in one area of your life, it can make things unsteady. So, for example, if you're going through a career change, it can make things unsteady, right? Because you're worried about maybe finances, or you're not sure about your new if you're going to get a job or what your new career is and how it's going to formulate. But think about it as you could be experiencing such transitions that your career is not only changing, but your relationships are, your marriage is. Or you realize you don't want to live in the same place anymore. You want a different city or a different place on the globe. And when you start shifting, all these desires for change can come up, and they're very unsteady. Very unsteady. But that's part of the excitement, and that's part of the gift of transformation, because then you're also in awareness that you can create anything you want next. It's really that big. Anything you want. What do you want? And yes, you might be worried about money or wonder if there is anybody else on the planet that you would ever be in a relationship with. And you wonder, what is your job and what am I supposed to do in my life? All these are big questions, but that's the journey. That's what I feel is the fun. It might not be fun when you're in it, but that's the amazing part of right now, is that we have more choices. We have more ways to exert our energy. We have more awareness about what we can create. And we have more resources than ever. Now, this is the part also that requires a leap of faith. Huge leap of faith. And I understand how big that is for some of you. I get it. It's really big. And you maybe have never done it before. And you've always thought about it. Or you feel ready, but you're still scared. If that's the case, I talk about soaring in another special episode of this show. You can find it here on Blog Talk Radio or on iTunes. I talk about soaring and the leap of faith and what that's about. I recommend listening to that show. I also recommend listening to the show I just did around surrendering, because that is also essential to this part of the process. All of these things work together, and they do so beautifully. But there are some components that are required of you. And I talk about those in those other shows, so I don't want to get too far into them. But again, these are free resources. These are free shows. You can listen to them on iTunes, on the radio, on the internet. You can download them. I just give to you. I just give and I give. Because I really believe that there are people who are ready for this information. And that when I give to you, it benefits you and it benefits all the people that you touch, right? I mean, that's how we're all connected and how we're all doing this together.